You know, because it's a high-level policy, and I get that at a city level, but we're talking about a department over here that should have a little bit more leeway, and you have a board that's overseeing this department. So I would think that you would entrust the board to make those decisions.
I've asked Janet to get each of you a copy of the new city purchasing policy and procedure. We'll get that to you. Do you want it in electronic format or do you want it in hard copy? Electronic format would be best. And then if you've got any questions, or you want to discuss this at a future meeting, you know, let us know, and we'll get it back on the agenda.
All right. Hearing no further discussion on new business item 2, we'll move on to new business item number 3. Consider the appointment of a Gardner Energy representative to the Kansas Municipal Energy Agency, KMEA, Board of Directors. Bill.
We had this on a previous agenda, if you recall, and it was tabled. When Darren McNew resigned from the city, from Gardner Energy, it left a vacancy in the Director No. 1 position for KMEA. And we talked about the requirements are pretty basic to be a director, and that is you got to reside within the city of Gardner and be served by Gardner Energy. That leaves a director out. That leaves Brandon out. At the present time, we have a Director 1, a Director 2, and an alternate. Director 2 is David Frank, and his term expires in this coming April 30th. And then the alternate is the Chairman, Eric Schultz, and his term expires in April of 2015. I think when we talked about this last, I kind of suggested that maybe one of the other board members might want to consider to be Director No. 1. That's an option. We could move Dave Frank up to Director No. 1 and have a board member as Director No. 2. Those were just some ideas that we discussed. You probably haven't given much more thought to this, but we really need to make a decision.
Well, we tabled it because Randy wasn't here and we didn't know if you'd be interested, number 1. And Lance couldn't at the time. And Eric's already an alternate.
Yes.
So I guess, is anybody interested? Lance, would you consider it now that you're available?
I guess so.
Just because I know that you have the experience of KMEA.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate being considered, but I think Lance is in this case, a better option to represent this utility board in this fine city. The only thing I would add is, Lance, would that put you in a bind for future endeavors? If so, maybe we could look at those options later, but just thinking ahead.
Okay. You take it as it comes.
Fair enough.
You can always change it later.
Fair enough. I'd second that motion.
Somebody made a motion?
I don't think I've heard one yet.
I didn't put it in the form of a motion, but I will. I move to appoint Lance as Director 1 for the KMEA Board of Directors.
Second. Motion by Mark, second by Randy, to appoint Lance Boyd to fill out the remainder of Darren McNew's partial term as Director No. 1 to the KMEA Board of Directors. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain?
And Mr. Chairman, I would recommend Director No. 2, because that term expires pretty quick. While you're at the topic, now's the time to deal with that.
We were going to put that on a future agenda, but we can do that tonight too, if you like.
Future's fine. I would say future.
Yeah, I think seeing as how we have not listed that as an item on the agenda tonight for consideration, we're probably best off picking that up at perhaps our next meeting.
Makes sense.
Motion does pass. New business item number 4, budget review. Mr. Krawcheck.
I have included in the board's packet a very preliminary year-end summary for 2013 for your review. These numbers will, as you know, they'll change before the books officially close for the year. Looking at revenue, we came in at 95% of budget on revenue for the year. We were about $759,000 behind 2012 and over $800,000 behind budget. So from a revenue standpoint, it wasn't a real good year for Gardner Energy. Looking at operating expenses, I think staff did a great job. Brandon and Darren and Evan and everyone involved in that. You can see administration came in at 89% of budget, generation 96% of budget, and distribution 82% of budget, which means that each one of those divisions spent, for instance, administration, 89% of what was budgeted for the year. As a whole, the group came in at 92%, which is about $624,000 less compared to last year, and a little over $900,000 under budget for 2013. That saved us from dipping into our operating reserves by the end of the year. If you go down to the bottom of the page and look at net income, we actually ended the year with right at $370,000 in net income. So we salvaged the year. It ended up being a pretty good year from a bottom line standpoint. Even though our operating revenues were considerably less than what we anticipated. We'll come back and review this again in more detail, if that's okay, when the numbers firm up.
Can I ask you a couple of questions in the meantime?
Sure.
First, congrats to the staff for keeping the expenses down. That was great. One question is, down on total capital improvement expenditures,
Yes.
we're at 72%. Is that because we were overestimating on the budget, or because we're still expecting that to go up another $180,000?
No, that won't go up anymore.
Okay. And then the projects that we delayed because we were wary of the end of the year numbers, do we have any idea how much of the savings are due to the delay?
I did receive your email, and we are working on that. Brandon and I had a conversation about that today, and we're putting that together for the board.
Okay, great.
I just had a couple of little questions also. In kind of along the same lines, I'm comparing the budget we adopted in 2013 versus the actuals in 2012. I'm just wondering how, I don't know, for example, your 2012 actual for contractual services was $93K. We budgeted $125K for 2013, and then we spent $84K. So I'm just kind of wondering how that 125 was figured out. I mean, what criteria did we use to do these?
Well, we've got
budgets?
a model that puts it out 5, 10, and 15, and 20 years to kind of get a little murky, but 5 years out, and then based off different projects and different items, those numbers vary based off that. Bill can probably give you more details on a specific line item.
Well, we do. Plus each one of these, Lee, like contractual services, let's look at administration, because I think that's what you were looking at when you asked your question. Commodities, capital outlay, each one of those line items has multiple entries, multiple. So for that one big line item, contractual services,